Good afternoon. Myself, Dr. M. Vijaya Jyoti, Professor at Ravigara Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Alanpur. As a part of GPAT classes, now I would like to introduce today's guest lecture for this. And I would like to invite Dr. Isha Karwar, Associate Professor at Shanti Ram College of Pharmacy, Nandyal. Okay. So today, sir is going to take a special 1 hour class on infrared spectroscopy, instrumentation, and also interpretation of infrared spectroscopy. So I wish you all for the listening, and also you can ask any doubts regarding this if you have. Thank you. Dr. Ishak?
Yes, madam.
Dr. Ishak?
Yes,
so
please,
you are more.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you, madam.
You are welcome. Please. Infrared spectroscopy. Thank you.
Thank you. Are my slides visible, madam?
Yes, your slides are visible.
Yeah, thank you.
Dear students, you have to give some answers if sir asks any questions regarding visibility of the slides or audibility, etc. Okay. So class representative, if you are there in the group, you have to respond. So meanwhile, sir will be asking some questions or some if any doubts. If any connectivity problem is there, you have to approach sir for this. We should give the information. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Good afternoon, one and all. I am Dr. B. Muhammad Ishaq. I'm also one of the proud students of a very famous institute, Raipur. I'm a second batch student over there, and I did my M.Pharm.C. from JNTU Hyderabad and PhD from JNTU Kakinada. I'm currently working as a professor in the Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis, Shanti Ram College of Pharmacy, Nandyal, Karnool District. So I'm very delighted to give a talk on IR spectroscopy. So for the B.Pharm.C. student, as far as GPAT class is concerned. A formal disclaimer from my side. All the information and views shared in this presentation belongs solely to me, not necessarily to my employer, organization, committee, or any other group or individuals. This presentation is delivered with the whole and sole educational purpose of the students, not involved any commercial benefits. Thus, the presenter or his employer neither claims for any copyright nor responsible for any sort of copyright issues, if any, in future. So, before going to learn about what exactly IR spectroscopy, a small couple of slides will look after what exactly the analytical techniques are and how these analytical techniques work, and a bit introduction about spectroscopy. Okay? Coming to the broad classification of analytical techniques, chromatography is a technique where we are using for the separation of a mixture of substances. If any case of a mixture of the substances has to be individually resolved into its individual substance, then we will take the help of chromatography. If it is a case of determination of the structure of a molecule, then we will take the help of a spectroscopy. And depending upon the physicochemical characteristics of a molecule or an analyte, if it is quantified, then that sort of technique is called as electroanalytical technique. For example, potentiometry, conductometry comes under this category. And if you determine any of the quantify any analyte depending upon the titration, then that sort is called as titermetric analysis. So this is a very broad classification of analytical techniques, what we generally see. Well, coming to what exactly the spectro, we are not looking after all these things like chromatography and all those things. We are focusing much about what exactly spectroscopy means, and then we'll talk of how the IR spectroscopy works and what is its applications, etc. Well, spectroscopy is simply to see called as the molecular eye. You and me can't see a molecule. We are unable to see the molecules. They are as much as small. but the spectroscopy can see the molecule, can sense the substance, can sense the molecule. It is seeing the unseen, which it is not able to see with our naked eyes, can be visualized by a technique called as spectroscopy. In a broad definition, it is a branch of analytical science or a branch of science that deals with the study of interaction between electromagnetic radiation with matter. Two or three terms what we need to understand here. What is called matter, first of all? Matter is anything which occupies a little bit volume and have some weight. For instance, I myself is a matter, you are matter, this laptop is a matter, phone, pen, pencil, paper, everything is matter, including the drugs and molecules are also comes under matter only, because they too occupy little volume and have some weight. And electromagnetic radiation. What does electromagnetic radiation mean? It is a combination of an electric wave and magnetic wave. Electric wave and magnetic wave are combined together to form a very high powerful hybrid energy, that hybrid radiation, what we call it as electromagnetic radiation. Look at this wave. The blue lines represents an electric wave traveling perpendicular to the plane. Perpendicular, this is the plane, this is a straight surface is plane, X. To this plane, the electric wave is traveling perpendicularly, whereas the red lines are traveling parallel to the plane. If you can able to correlate, as you might have seen a small insect, a green insect on a leaf, which will travel perpendicular to the plane. And that way, the electric wave travels perpendicular to the plane. And if you can visualize a snake crawling on a land, which is making a parallel motion, that way the magnetic field will propagate, the magnetic field will travel. Both these radiations, if they club together, that will form the electromagnetic radiation. If such electromagnetic radiation falls on a molecule, what exactly is going to happen? What will happen is the study of spectroscopy. The result what we obtain after completion of this interaction is what is called as spectra. Depending upon that spectra, we pharmaceutical analysts have to give the information regarding the structure of an unknown molecule. Something like, you know, how a physician comes to know the conclusion of a heart by looking at an ECG. If you look after the ECG, nothing, the diagrams will be present, heart diagrams, no auricles, no ventricles, nothing will be present. Just it's a wave of PQRST curves. But how a physician or a cardiologist has come to conclusion about the condition of a heart by looking at ECG, in same way, by looking at the spectrum, a pharmaceutical analyst has to come to a conclusion what could be the substance is. You must identify the molecule just by looking at the peaks or just by looking at the graph. That is the beauty of the subject. That's called spectroscopy. So this spectra arises due to the interaction between electromagnetic radiation and matter. Matter in the sense for us, it's of compounds. Electromagnetic radiations have number of electromagnetic radiations are there. For instance, look at this spectrum. Right from the radio waves to gamma rays, we have different types of electromagnetic radiations. Apart from this, still more radiations are available, still more radiations are there, but yet they need to be explored. But as far as today is concerned, we have only these spectra, these electromagnetic radiations known to the humans. Right from the radio waves, microwaves, infrared, visible, UV, X-rays, and gamma rays. These all in clubbed together called a spectrum, electromagnetic spectrum. All are electromagnetic radiations. Everything, radio waves is also electromagnetic radiation, gamma wave is also electromagnetic radiation. Then how these are characterized, how these have been divided, classified, these all have been classified depending upon certain characteristics. We call them as wave characteristics. See, we are all human beings. We are all human beings. How we have been classified, how we have been individualized, depending upon our characteristics, depending upon our physical characteristics. If a fellow is having this much height, that much color, that fellow's name is this one. If a girl is this much height, that much color, we will imagine that girl's name is this one. Like this, each and every individual is having one, depending upon the characteristics of a person, we used to remember in the same way, all these electromagnetic radiations has been characterized depending upon their physical characteristics. So various physical characteristics are wavelength, frequency, energy, wave number, amplitude, etc., etc. So this wavelength is called as you know that the distance between two successive crusts and troughs is called wavelength. Okay, and what's most importantly you have to remember here is the relationships, how they are related, interrelated with one another. Lambda wavelength is inversely proportional to nu. What is nu called? Nu is called frequency. Frequency is denoted with number of waves passing through a particular point in a given time. Time must be important. Number of waves passing through a particular point in a given time is frequency, but number of waves passing through a particular point without any indication of any time, it becomes wave number. Well, wavelength is inversely proportional to frequency. Energy is directly proportional to frequency, and energy is inversely proportional to wavelength. These characteristics you need to be remembered. These are a bit important. Okay. So these are the electromagnetic radiations, and out of this we are going to discuss exclusively, we'll confine our talk only on the infrared radiation. We are not going to discuss the rest of the fields. Okay. Well, coming to the infrared spectroscopy. Infrared spectroscopy, look at that word very carefully. Infrared, inferior to red. The name has been coined in such a way that inferior to red. Look at this spectrum. The infrared region is present inferior to red. In what sense it is inferior to red? In the form of energy. Energy wise, in a form of an energy terms, it is inferior to red light of the visible zone. As you know, the visible zone is classified into 7 different colors, right? With GR, we call it as violet, indigo, blue, green, orange, and red. After that red light, the region which falls next to that red light is called as infrared region. Inferior to red light of visible zone is called infrared zone. Infrared zone lies between micro and visible waves, very bigger waves, very bigger region of entire spectrum. I could say that infrared region is one of the very biggest region of entire spectrum. Well, what's the use of IR spectroscopy? As such, spectroscopy is used for the determination of a structure of a compound. If in order to determine the structure of a compound, we must take the help of spectroscopy. In that, what is the use of IR spectroscopy? Just by studying one particular spectroscopy, you cannot able to establish the complete structure of a molecule. It's impossible. Spectroscopy itself is a branch which is used for the molecular determination, structural determination. Of course, yes. But just by studying, knowing one particular spectroscopic technique, we cannot establish the complete structure of a molecule. We need to take the help of UV spectroscopy. We need to take the help of IR spectroscopy. We have to take the help of NMR, MAS, etc., etc. So that we put all these spectra beneath, besides, and then we can able to reduce the compound structure of a compound. In that one, what is the role of IR spectroscopy in molecular determination, molecular structural determination? The most important role, the most important function of IR spectroscopy, application of IR spectroscopy is determination of functional groups. Functional groups can be determined by IR spectroscopy. It is a conformational spectroscopy for the presence or absence of functional groups. If a functional group is confirmed by IR spectroscopy, it is 100% present in the compound. That much confirmation will be obtained from the IR spectroscopy. In some other terms, IR spectroscopy can also be called as a vibrational spectroscopy. And as I said, that is a very broad area, right? Extends from 12,500 centimeter inverse to somewhere around 40 centimeter inverse. So if you can remember your UV visible spectroscopy, UV visible spectroscopy, it ranges from 200 nanometers to 400 nanometers. 200 to 400 and 400 to 800 nanometers is visible zone. UV to visible, it is 200 to 800 nanometers. How many units are there? 200 to 800 nanometers. Somewhere are approximately 600 units, 600 to 700 units will be present. Just to study 600 to 700 units, we have subclassified these two into UV zone and visible zone. Am I right? In the same way, just compare the UV region with the IR regions, 12,500, somewhere around 14,000. Some textbooks write this 14,000 centimeter inverse. 14,000 centimeter inverse to 40 centimeter inverse. How broad it is. To study this much broader range, this has been classified into 3 subcategories. That is near infrared region, middle infrared region, far infrared region. Near infrared, near to whom? Near to you or me? Near to red zone of the visible region, not you or me. Okay. Near to red light of the visible zone, it is called as near infrared region, and the region which is present far from the visible zone, it is called as far infrared region. Near infrared region starts somewhere around 12,500 to ends at 4,000 centimeter inverse. Mid IR starts from 4,000, ends at somewhere around 400 centimeter inverse, and far IR starts from 400, ends at 40 centimeter inverse. So middle infrared region again classified into two categories. They are called as group frequency region and a fingerprint region. Group frequency region is one where it starts from 4000, ends at 1500 centimeter inverse. That is the region where you will get the peaks or spectra or signals corresponds to the functional groups. As I said, that IR is exclusively meant for the determination of functional groups. So all these functional groups will give its signals somewhere in the group frequency region. And what is the fingerprint region? Very interestingly, are my fingerprints are going to match with any one of you, or any one of in the Anantapur or Kurnool region, or anyone in the state at least? No, right? No person in this world will match with my fingerprints. In the same way, the fingerprint spectra of a compound will never and ever correlate or coincide with any other compound in this universe. That much specific it is, that much specific spectra will be obtained in the fingerprint region. So if your compound is having some fingerprint region, and if some other compound is also same fingerprint region, more or less, then you can say that those two compounds are 100% same. So that is the what is called a fingerprint region. And in the group frequency region, you will get the spectra, you will get the graphs, or you will get the signals corresponds to the particular functional group which is present in our compound. Well, coming to the principle, I will talk much about the principle and as well as interpretation. We'll give less focus on what is called the instrumentation, because as far as GPAT is concerned, there will not be much, they will not be having much importance as far as instrumentation is concerned. I didn't mean that to leave that instrumentation part completely. Go through that instrumentation part also. It is also a bit important. I will discuss what are the important points are there in as far as instrumentation is concerned. Well, coming to the principle, in any molecule or an atom, how does the molecule build? A molecule builds with a group of atoms, right? Am I right? So atoms are going to be combined, connected with the help of what is called bonds. We used to write the bond in a form of a rigid line, but practically, in a real sense, that is not in the form of a rigid line. Rather, it compares to that of a flexible, highly flexible, spring-like structure. The bonds what we generally write between two atoms to connect to those two atoms, they are not at all rigid in nature. In the practical world, they are highly flexible springs in nature. These flexible springs, which are being connected by two atoms or two or more number of atoms, whatever it is, so they are not at all rigid in nature. As they are highly flexible in nature, obviously, when you have two different atoms bound to that one particular bond, two different atoms, what I mean to say, listen to me very carefully, two different atoms of different molecular weights. Imagine that this pen is a bond, and two atoms are there. Two atoms have been holded. Two atoms in this manner. One is bigger atom, another one is smaller atom. This bigger atom and smaller atom, as the two different molecular weights atoms have been combined to this very highly flexible spring, there will be continuous motion for this particular bond. Why it is so? Because as I said that this is highly flexible spring, and as well as two different molecular weights atoms has been, two different atomic weight atoms has been connected to a bond. As a result, without any external influence, this will be naturally, they'll be continuously under vibration, continuously under motion. That motion, technically we call it as vibrations. This bond is happily dancing like this in its own way, without any external influence. Naturally, that will take place. Naturally, as the bond is continuously moving like this, we will be having some natural frequency. How many times the bond is going to be stretch or bends like this, it is going to dance in this manner. How many times it is going to repeat the function in the same way in a given particular time is frequency. So naturally, the bond is flexible in nature, and two atoms have been combined. So as a result, there will be some motion, and that motion is called as vibration with some natural frequency. That frequency is called as a natural frequency of vibration. And to this naturally frequenting, naturally dancing bond, if IR energy comes and hits to this bond, IR energy comes and bombards, collides with this bond, what exactly is going to happen? This natural frequency, whenever it equalizes to applied frequency of IR is also one sort of electromagnetic radiation, and electromagnetic radiation should have wave characteristic called as frequency. When these two frequencies become equal, then at that particular point, a signal corresponds to that particular functional group is going to be obtained. So applied frequency must be equal to that of the natural frequency of the vibration. Then only a signal will get appears. Let us just spend a couple of minutes on this particular issue. Why the applied frequency of infrared region must be, infrared light must be equal to the natural frequency of the vibrational bond. We will talk about this one. Just yeah. Look at this bond. A bond which is having two different atoms vibrating in its own way, stretching and relaxing, with an, as it is no external influence is there, it is called as a natural frequency. But when the two bonds have been combined with greater masses, two different masses, the frequency will get lower, and the two smaller atoms will get frequency is more. Similarly, when the bond is strong enough, then the frequency will be high, and the bond is weak, the frequency will be a bit less. Well, whatever it is. So the bond which is naturally vibrating in its own way with the two different atoms, to such vibrating bonds, if IR comes and strikes, now what happens? The IR light is going to induce transferred energy, and the stretching increases, frequency increase. Not only frequency, if you can observe, the distance between two atoms has also increased. The distance between two atoms initially was less. The distance between the two atoms were less. And now, as the incident of IR radiation, the distance has also increased. That leads what is called as a change in the dipole moment. Okay, so that is the most important prerequisite of a molecule in order to be the IR active. So a change in the dipole moment results in the absorption of IR radiation. What is this change in dipole moment? Whenever the bond stretches, the electrons which has been distributed equally earlier, these electrons has to migrate either towards to either one of the atoms which is having more electronegative in nature. These electrons will migrate towards one particular atom. As a result, that atom will get negative charge, and the atom which loses those electrons will get positive charge. That is called as dipole moment. This dipole moment need not be a permanent one. It should not be a permanent one. It need not be a permanent one. A small change in the dipole moment. When this dipole moment forms, when this dipole moment occurs, what exactly happens? There is a positive and negative atoms in a bond, and we are focusing electromagnetic radiation. What happens? The opposite charges interact with the electromagnetic radiation. The electromagnetic radiation, nothing but energy, flows inside the atom. Exactly at the dipole moment formation, the energy from the IR radiation flows into the molecule. As a result, the energy will be absorbed, and the electron and the vibration gets increases. At that particular point, we said that natural frequency should be equal to the applied frequency. Why this exactly at that particular tag only the signal has to appear? Because whenever the natural frequency equalizes to the applied frequency, what is the relation between frequency and energy? We have seen in the previous slides. It is directly proportional. When the natural frequency is equal to the applied frequency, both the energies will become equal. As a result, the energy flow takes place from IR radiation to the molecule, and as a result, you will see a signal appears in the spectrum. So that is the basic principle, one of the most important principle, and the most prerequisite here. The point what you have to remember here is the change in the change in the dipole moment. If the dipole moment happens, if the dipole moment occurs, then only the dipole moment changes take place, then only you will see a bond formation. We will see a spectra in the signals area. Well, the homonuclear atoms like nitrogen, oxygen do not have any dipole moment, because whatever the IR radiation you make to fall on between N2, the bond which is present between two nitrogen atoms, there will not be any dipole moment occurs, because both are same. Here also nitrogen, here also nitrogen. Even if you stretch, the electrons will remain there itself though. So there is no dipole moment, no bond formation, no signal appears in the IR. Well, Coming to the molecular vibrations, from this we'll go a bit faster. There are two types of vibrations. As I said, that the bond between the two atoms will be having flexible in nature. So obviously, the two bonds will be having different vibrations. Two different vibrations are possible. There are stretching vibration and bending vibrations. They are stretching vibration is one where the bond length is going to increase or decrease by keeping the bond angle as constant. Look at this one. These two bonds are symmetrically stretching with each other, and these are one is stretching, another one is relaxing. This is called as asymmetrical stretching. And another type of vibration is called as a bending vibration. We also call it as a deformations. In some cases in GPAT paper, they may give as what is called deformations also. Deformations is called bending type of vibrations. Again, it's of two types, that is in plane bending and out of the plane bending. In plane bending, scissoring, something like motion of a scissors, rocking to the one particular side, either to this or to this side. In bending type of vibration, bond length is constant, bond angle varies. These two will move by keeping the plane aside. Plane will be constant. In the same plane, they are going to bend, and this is called as out of plane bending. Look at these two bonds. At one instance, it is coming forward, and in one instance, it is going backwards. This is wagging. Both the bonds comes forward and goes backward aside. Then it is called as wagging. And in this one bond comes to you, another bond comes away from you, goes away from you. That is called as twisting. Wagging is towards us and goes out of opposite in way. This is wagging. Twisting is in this manner. One is coming towards you, another one is going opposite to you. It's the wagging. These are the four different bending vibrations, and the previous two are stretching vibrations. Remember, a most important point what here is to remember is, out of these type of vibrations, which type of vibration require more amount of energy? Stretching require more amount of energy rather than bending. Stretching must have both the and in stretching also, which type of stretching require more amount of energy? Symmetrical stretching require more amount of energy than the asymmetrical stretching vibrations. Well, coming to the molecular vibration Hooke's law. So the stretching frequency will be calculated depending upon the Hooke's law. Hooke's law describes the relation between the frequency and the mass of the bond and the bond length. What's the need of this one? Why do we need to learn about the Hooke's law? Because Hooke's law gives the information regarding where exactly the frequency absorbs, where exactly how much amount of frequency energy will be absorbed by the molecule will be given by the Hooke's law. Hooke's law is equals to K into root of F by M, where K is a proportionality constant, F is force constant, the strength of the bond, the strength of the spring, and M is the reduced masses to which the two atoms are linked. The particular bond's force strength and the mass of the atoms to which the atom has been linked with is called as Hooke's law. There will be after completion of Hooke's law, we need to look after fundamental vibrational modes. What do you mean by fundamental? Fundamental is nothing but natural, no external influence of energy. Fundamental vibrational modes. Fundamental means naturally vibrating. How many types of natural vibrations can be seen in a bond? Those many peaks will be appeared in a IR spectra. Remember this point, very most important one. What is called fundamental vibrations? Fundamental vibrations is called as natural vibrations without any external influence. So a molecule can vibrate in many ways. Each way is called as a vibrational mode. A number of possible vibrational modes of a molecule is determined by the degree of freedom, and it is given by 3n, where n is called as number of atoms. If a molecule is linear, it will be given as 3n minus 5. If a molecule is non-linear, it is 3n minus 6. Remember these two, most important one. For a linear molecule, the number of fundamental vibrations is given by 3n minus 5, whereas for a non-linear molecule, it is given by 3n minus 6. Now, let me explain you in a very beautiful manner by taking a couple of examples here. Look at the molecule of water. Water is having an asymmetric stretching, a symmetric stretching, and a bending, what is called scissoring type of bending. So three different types of vibrations are possible in a water molecule. So number of electrons, number of atoms in a molecule is 3, and 3n becomes 9 degree of freedom. And water, as it is non-linear, 3n minus 6. So 3n minus 6 is the fundamental vibrations. So 9 minus 6, totally 3 fundamental vibrations are possible. So 3 fundamental vibrations will be given as 3 peaks, like 1, 2, and somewhere a small bending peak here, 3. three peaks are possible. Three peaks will be seen for a water molecule. Similarly, for the carbon dioxide, there are three atoms. Again, it is a linear molecule. So 3n. So 3n is number of atoms. 3 into 3, 9 degree of freedom. For a linear molecule, it is 3n minus 5. So 3n minus 5 is 9 minus 5 equals to 4. 4 vibrations are possible. Now, let me explain in a very last example, that is formaldehyde. 4 atoms are present, so 2, 3, and 4. 4 atoms are present in formaldehyde. This is a non-linear molecule. So 3 into 4, n is 4. So 12 degree of freedom is possible. So 3n minus 6, why? Because it is a non-linear. So 12 minus 6, 6 fundamental vibrations are possible. Now all these 6 fundamental vibrations will give a characteristic peak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 characteristic peaks are possible for the formaldehyde. This is a very simple one, but practically, if the formaldehyde has been scanned in IR spectroscopy, this is not the spectra. You will not get this much clean spectra, because too many factors are going to influence on IR spectra of a compound. These are the vibrations. These are the factors which influence the vibrational frequencies. Sometimes the vibrations will couple with each other. Sometimes electronic effects like mesomeric effect, inductive effect will come into the picture. Sometimes hydrogen bonding will takes place. Hydrogen bonds will form in between the atoms, and sometimes overtones, Fermi resonance is going to come into the picture. Number of vibrations, number of factors influence on a vibration of a particular bond. Now let us see how exactly this is. The calculated value of frequency. Earlier we have calculated the frequency by using 3n minus 5 and 3n minus 6, right? So the calculated value of the frequency will never and ever be equal to the experimental value. Definitely they are going to change, because practically number of factors will come into influence. But if you calculate on a pen or paper, no factor will be seen. No vibrations, no vibration couplings, no hydrogen bonding. Let us explain. Let us see what is this. Let us understand what are these vibration couplings, hydrogen bondings, and electronic effects, etc. This will be a very interesting one. This is a vibrational coupling. Now look after this. Don't read this matter. You will not get anything from this. Just observe these two compounds. This is a methylene group. Listen very, very carefully, because this is the same concept what we again see in the Fermi resonance and overtones also. This is a compound of methylene. This is a compound. Pay much attention here. Leave about that matter. That matter is not going to help you again anything. This molecule is methylene molecule. This is a CH bond, isolated CH bond, a single CH bond, either from the same methylene or somewhere else. This methylene will give two types of vibrations. Am I right? Symmetrical and asymmetrical stretching. This bond may stretch and this may relax, and vice versa. But what about this one? How many vibrations are possible in this? Only one. Only one. Am I right? Either it can bend or stretch, whatever it is. So only one. Only one is possible. Once imagine that these two vibrations, if this bond vibrates in the same like that of an isolated CH bond of the same compound or any other compound in a mixture, whatever it is. So if the same bond, if it vibrates in the same manner, then what happens? These two energies becomes equal. As a result, these two will couple with each other. That is called as vibrational coupling. Have you understood? Let me explain one more time. So if this is a methylene molecule will show two types of stretchings. One is symmetrical and another one is asymmetrical stretching, as it is having two bonds. And this is an isolated CH molecule, isolated CH bond. If the bond energy of this, imagine that this particular bond, this rounded bond is showing some stretching activity, and exactly with the same energy, this CH also gets stretched with each other. Then these two will couple with each other. Those are why they couple with each other, because the energies are equal. When the energies of these two bonds are equal, they will couple with each other. That particular phenomenon is called as vibrational coupling. Now, yeah, somebody has risen the hands. Okay, fine. Do you have any doubts? Am I audible? Shall I continue?
You You are audible, sir.
No, someone has raised their hands in Zoom. That's why. Okay, fine. Shall I continue again?
I think you can continue, sir.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So these two, when the energies of these two are equal, then what happens? They will couple with each other. As a result, that is called as a vibrational coupling. Vibrational coupling. Now, next one. So vibration. What happens if vibrations couple with each other? Vibrations, when they couple with each other, actually this individual CH bond has to show somewhere around 1900 or 2000. Then due to this coupling, the more amount of energy will be absorbed, and due to this more amount of energy, the bond will shift towards the higher wave numbers. Normally it has to be absorbed somewhere around 2000, but due to the coupling and due to the excess amount of energy of that coupling, the excess amount of energy leads to the shift of that particular bond towards the higher frequencies. That is the effect of this one. But if you theoretically calculate, you will get to somewhere around 2000. But if you practically do this one, it will be more than 2000 because of coupling of these two bonds. Next one is hydrogen bonding. Hydrogen bonding brings about remarkable download frequency shifts. This will reduces reduces the amount of energy which will absorbed by the bond. Stronger the hydrogen bonding, greater the absorption towards the lower, greater will be the shift of the peak towards the lower wavelengths. There are two types of hydrogen bondings are possible: intermolecular and intramolecular. Remember this much, most important point, and very confusing also. Intermolecular bonds and intramolecular bonds. Intermolecular, between two molecules, there will be a bond, there will be a hydrogen bond. Those bonds will give a broad peak. Whereas intramolecular, within the same atom, within the same molecule, if the hydrogen bond is formed, then it will be a very sharp peak. Inter and intra, how to differentiate? By looking after a peak. By looking after the peak, if the peak is broad, it is called as intermolecular, and if the peak is sharp, and it is called as intermolecular hydrogen bond. Generally, you will be seen in the alcohols and amines, etc., where the hydrogen bonding will take place. Intramolecular hydrogen bonding, intramolecular, within the molecule, if the hydrogen bonding is present, they will not get disappear even after you dilute. Generally, what happens, if you take a concentrated sample and if you scan for IR spectra, you will see a sharp peak, broad peak for intermolecular hydrogen bonding, for high concentrated sample. And if you slowly dilute that sample, slowly what happens, the broad peak will be slowly disappears. Why it disappears? Because the intermolecular bonds will be cut by the solvent molecules. As a result, the intermolecular bonds will get reduces. As a result, the peak height will also get reduces. Slowly at one particular point, the complete bond will get, the complete band of IR will get vanished away. Whereas intramolecular hydrogen bonding, where the hydrogen bond takes place within the molecule, will not be affected because the bond is present inside the molecule, which will be protected. The solvent molecules can't cut the hydrogen bonding. As a result, the molecule, it will show a very sharp peak. Even if you dilute or concentrate the sample, the sharp peak will remain as such. Electronic effects. First one is inductive effect. Due to the presence of alkyl groups. So alkyl groups will get positive inductive effect, whereas some electron withdrawing group like chlorine, fluorine, these will induce negative inductive effect. We have seen this in our first year in organic chemistry. For example, formaldehyde is there, HCOH. Its frequency, its wave number is 1750 centimeter inverse. But if you introduce one methyl moiety at this particular position, it will become acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde is 1745. It has shifted towards the lower numbers. Positive inductive effect will shift the value towards the lower index. This is also another important concept as far as the GPAT is concerned. Inductive effect, positive inductive effect will reduces the value. Negative inductive effect will increases the value. Do remember this one, very much important. What happens? What exactly happens? Because positive inductive effect will cause the bond to get weakened. The bond will become weakened because the CH3 moiety has been replaced. That will become a weak bond, and as a result, lengthening of the bond or weakness of the bond will happen. As a result, it will absorb at lower frequency. It will absorb low amount of energy. As a result, the peak will shift towards the lower wave numbers. By introduction of electronegative element like oxygen or fluorine, the bond will become rigid and it will get strength As a result, the bond will absorb more amount of energy and the peak shift towards the higher wave numbers. Most and most important concept as far as your GPAT is concerned, do remember this one. Another one is mesomeric effect, smaller one. Generally, it causes lightening or weakening of the bond if the electrons which are present on lone pair of electrons undergoes a resonance. So the lone pair of electrons forms the resonance moieties by forming pi bonds. Obviously, pi bonds are weaker bonds, so they will absorb less amount of energy. As a result, the energy will get reduced. Look at this one. Nitrogen benzamide will be having 1693, whereas the methyl benzoate will be having oxygen. Oxygen will not give its electrons as such as that of nitrogen, so it has increased to 1730 centimeter inverse. Yeah, the most important one and very confusing one is the overtones and Fermi resonance. Very simple, very easy and very simple one. Very easy one. Look at this one. So earlier we have discussed the fundamental vibrations. What is the fundamental vibrations? Without any influence of external energy, if the bond is vibrating, that is called as a fundamental vibration. If the same bond is given with little amount of IR energy, what happens? That bond will absorb IR radiation and excites to the another higher energetic state. If the more amount of energy is absorbed, if the bond is enough strength is having and it is going to absorb more amount of energy, that bond will go to the state called as first overtone. Overtone is a state where the bond is going to absorb more amount of energy. And still, if it is absorbed more amount of energy, it goes to second, third, and furthermore number of overtones. That means it's a coupling of the fundamental vibrations. That means if the bond is going to absorb more amount of vibration, when it is going to absorb more amount of vibration, coupling of vibrations, we have seen earlier, right? If the vibrations are going to couple with each other, then if the two fundamental vibrations couple with each other, they will go to first overtone. And next will second overtone, third overtone, if it absorbs more amount of energy. That is called as overtones. Small peak, small non-prominent peak. I request someone to kindly mute your mic. Yeah, thank you. So the coupling of these vibrations causes the overtones. Now, look at this one. This is a fundamental vibration. Actually, this is a natural. Yeah. Sorry for the disturbance. Yeah, this is a fundamental vibration. That is a natural vibration. Naturally, the bond with some external IR energy, it is going to vibrate at 3300 centimeter inverse. But due to some coupling of the vibrations, due to some equal amount of coupling vibrations, what happens? The bond is going to, the bonds where it has to get its strength at 3300 centimeter inverse, it will take the more amount of energy. As a result, it will go to 6600 centimeter inverse as it is called as overtone, first overtone. And similarly, much more energy is still available. It will go to second overtone, third overtone like this. Let's see here. Initially, it was in the mid-IR zone. Later, it has come to 6600 centimeters. It has gone to the far IR regions like this and all. It's going to come to the far IR regions. So the bond will shift towards the far IR region if going on, if it is increasing. Now, Fermi resonance is coupling of one fundamental resonance with the one overtone. With fundamental resonance and overtone combines with each other, then the peak will prominently increases. That increased prominent peak is called as Fermi resonance peak. Actually, these are all different types of interactions. What exactly happens in a molecule when they are influenced under IR radiation? Practically, these are all going to happen. But when you calculate it theoretically, that's a different story. But practically, these all are going to be coming to the picture. Another small concept is conjugation. By the conjugation, if the conjugation also lowers the energy because it will also induces the double bond. So look at this one, C double bond O will absorb its radiation at somewhere around 15 centimeter inverse, as this is not in conjugation. Look at this is not in conjugation. And if the same has been introduced the conjugation by shifting that bond from this particular place to this one, and it enters into the conjugation, as a result, look at this one, the shift of energy has been taking place. The energy has been lowered. The conjugation will lower the energy. Please do remember the factors are at most important for your GPAT examination. Okay. Well, that's about the principal and the principal topics. Coming to the instrumentation, I'm not going to discuss much about the instrumentation. We'll look after only the points which are exclusively meant for your examination purpose. So there are two types of instruments. There are dispersive instrument and as well as interferometric type of instruments. Dispersive IR, the normal IR, which will be where the light will be spread or the light will be separated into individual frequencies by using a grating type monochromator. Remember, the grating type monochromator must be made up of not with any the prism like material or glass or something. It has to be made with the only salts like NaCl or KBr, because glass, plastic or cardboard, everything will absorb IR radiation and that is going to get destroyed. Only salts are transparent for the IR radiation, so that's why with grating monochromator must be made up of salt. Yeah, and next one is FTIR, Fourier transformation infrared spectrophotometer. Look at these diagrams, you will get to know. This is the radiation source, and a grating will be present where the light is going to be separated into individual frequencies, and that frequency will make to fall on our sample, and then it is going to fall on the detector. Detector is going to detect the intensity with which it has been fallen on detector. This is a dispersive one, and this is a Fourier transformation, FTIR, where it will be having a movable mirror and a fixed mirror. Each and every movement of the mirror is going to be scanned for one particular wave number, and all these wave numbers, radiation will be made to fall through the sample, and then it is going to fall on our detector. Well, coming to the parts, IR radiation source are incandescent lamp, nest blower. Yeah, these are at most important. With which material it is constructed? This is a repeatedly asked question as far as your GPAT is concerned. Look at this one. Nest blower composed of rare earth oxides of metals like zirconia, yttria, and thorium. Zirconium, zirconium, and thorium. With these metals, the nest blower is made up of, and Globar source. Globar source is made up of silicon carbide. You need to remember these points. Okay. Mercury arc lamp is another IR radiation source. Remember the names of those sources and with which they are made up of. What's the material of construction? Sample cells and sampling substances. Unlike UV visible spectroscopy, IR is more flexible in sampling techniques, where you can analyze solids, liquids, and as well as gases. You can take the solids in the form of the solid films, solids run in solution. Mull technique, the most important point. Here in Mull technique, what is the Mull technique called? Mull technique is the technique in which we are going to mix our sample analyte with the mineral oil called Nujal. Remember, Nujal is a mineral oil. There is a confusing question here in Mull technique. What is the nature of Nujal oil? Nujal oil, they will give it as options like fixed oils, mineral oils, organic oils, fatty oils. Like this, they will give the 4 different options. You must choose the Nujal is a mineral oil. And sampling of liquids, sampling of gases. All these will the samples will be taken in discs of KBr or NaCl. Okay, KBr is more preferred one than NaCl. And the monochromators, grating type monochromators made up of KBr will be present. And coming to the detectors, bolometers, thermocouples, thermistors, Bole cells, photoconductivity detectors, semiconductors, pyroelectric detectors. Okay, these are all the just remember the names, that is more than sufficient. And if possible, just remember the mechanism with which they are going to work. Bolometers work on a principle of Wheatstone bridge. Thermocouples, 2 different dissimilar metals will be combined together to form a thermocouple. Like this, you need to remember the you have to remember the mechanism by which the detectors are going to work. Nothing much you have to remember in this one. Instrumentation part, this much is more than sufficient. You need not to remember the diagrams, etc., for the GPAT examination. Okay. Yeah, coming to the last part of the discussion, that is the identification by IR spectroscopy. Very interesting one and very most important one. Please pay much attention here. Don't get distracted with your concentration. So this is the most important one. As far as your GPAT is concerned, nobody asks about the instrumentation, the rest of the principles. They all are fine. But the person who reads and understands this interpretation makes a difference. Okay. So look at this one. That's the actual spectra. How does it looks like? IR spectra. It will be having an x-axis and y-axis. Yeah. Remember another most important point. What is the x-axis and y-axis in all the spectra? It was a repeatedly asked question. What is the x-axis and what is the quantity to be taken on x-axis and y-axis? In UV, we take the x-axis. X-axis, the parameter what is to be taken on the x-axis is wavelength, and y-axis is absorbance. If you can remember the lambda max curve. Whereas in IR, we take the wave numbers. Look at this one. These are all our wave numbers. X-axis is wave numbers. Y-axis is percentage transmittance. If you take percentage transmittance, the peaks appear in the form of dips like this. These are called as dips. And if you take percentage absorbance, the peak will reverse. You will get absorbance peaks like this. You will get the peaks in a reversal manner. So here we have taken percentage transmittance is a standard one. So that's why percentage transmittance gives the dips in this manner. So, and in the x-axis, we have to take the percentage, wave numbers. Coming to the NMR, we take chemical shift values on x-axis and percentage intensity on y-axis. Coming to the mass spectrometry, we take M by Z ratio. Remember, M by Z ratio on x-axis and y-axis is percentage intensity, percentage abundance, sorry, not intensity, abundance. So x-axis, y-axis, what we are going to take also you have to remember. Well, coming to the IR spectroscopy. In this one, I'm talking about mid-IR zone. It starts from 4,000 centimeter inverse and ends somewhere around 400 centimeter inverse. And the region between 4,000 to 1,500 centimeter inverse, this zone is called as a functional group region. Each and every functional group will give its characteristic peak. Actually, we have to call it as a dip, but in normal practice language, we call it as peak. Each and every functional group will give a characteristic peak in this particular region. And what is this region is called? This region is called a fingerprint region. I said in the earlier that my fingerprint is unique for me. In the same way, that fingerprint spectra is unique for that compound only. No other substance in this universe will show the same type of fingerprint region spectra. If it has shown the fingerprint spectra, which is similar to that of spectra, similar to that spectra, that means that the compound is same. Those two compounds are same compounds. Remember this one. Well, what we need to understand here is group frequencies. See, broadly classified, we have four different, how to interpret the spectra, how to interpret a molecular spectra, IR spectra. Let us see this one. We have to look after the compound, structure of the compound, and we have to know what type of bonds. You see, there will be two instances. Either you need to see the spectra and you have to tell what is the functional group present. Okay. You have to look at the spectra. You have to tell what are the different functional groups present, or else you have to look at the molecule and what type of where exactly the peaks may appear on the spectra. These are the only two instances. Either look at the spectra and tell the functional group, or look at the functional group and just imagine where exactly the peaks will be appeared in the on the spectrum. So we will see both the things. So the bonds related to hydrogen like OH, NH, CH will be somewhere around 4,000 to 3,000 centimeter inverse. They will resonate at 4,000 to 3,000 centimeter inverse. The triple bonds, C triple bond C, C triple bond N, will show their signals somewhere around 3,000 to 2,000 centimeter inverse. Double bonds from 2,000 to 1,600 or 1,500 centimeter inverse. Single bonds, and they are going to be bending type of vibration. One more important point. The bending type of vibrations will be seen in the fingerprint spectra. Stretching type of vibrations will be seen in the functional group region. Remember, stretching type requires more energy, bending type requires less energy. Fingerprint spectra, the signals which appears in the fingerprint region will be having less energetic, and the signals which appears in the functional group region will be having more energy in nature. Yeah, you need to remember at least 15 to 20 values, 15 to 20 frequency values. You had to by heart. You don't have any other option at all, because at least one question is must and should from this table. At least one question is should. Probably, most probably, you ask the question from C double bond C and C triple bond C, or CO or OH. These are the very regularly asking questions. Either the C triple bond C frequency wave number, C double bond C wave number, CO and OH. These are the most important frequencies and wave numbers. But you need to remember at least 20 wave numbers. Refer any of the textbook, at least remember 20 wave numbers so that it will be quite easy for you to remember in examination. Well, so if you talk graphically, we will having a OH bond and NH stretching here somewhere. Nitriles at 2000 to 2500 centimeter inverse. C double bond O, C double bond C, double bonds, all these double bonds from 2000 to 1500 centimeter inverse. And single bonds, bending type of vibrations. Look at this, bending type of vibrations will be seen in the fingerprint region. This is the fingerprint region. Well, so let us see one by one, functional group by functional group. We will get to know. The thick blue lines, the thick blue bands appears in a strong peak. What do you mean by strong, medium, and weak peaks? Strong peak is one which will be having more absorption. More absorption. What happens if it is morely absorbed? The more absorbed peak will be this much height. And this is a small one is a less absorbed. This is the percentage transmittance. Look at this one. Here 100 is present, and here 0 transmittance, percentage transmittance. If it is here somewhere around 90% is transmittance, 90% transmittance. If it is 0%, that means that it is 100% absorbed in nature. Okay, that means that is the meaning of the strong peaks, which is depicted in a blue color. Medium peaks is depicted in a bit weaker, blue, and this is the weak peaks. Now, alkenes. Now, look at a molecule of an alkane, and now tell me what are the different possible bonds are present. Let us take an example of alkane like methane or ethane. Ethane. What are the different bonds which are possible in ethane? Ethane bond, there will be a CC bond will be present. CH bond will also be present. CH2 bond, propane, butane, hexane, like this. The CH2 bonds are also present. Their characteristic frequencies are in this manner: 3000 to 2800 centimeter inverse, 1465 at methylene bond. For CH3 stretching, it will be 1375, and CH2 on iso molecules, it will be having 720 bending vibrations. Need not to be remember all the values. It's impossible to remember each and every value. Remember the most important and prominent peaks. The prominence of the alkanes is CH. Single bond CH, single bond CH. The bond at 3000 to 2800 centimeters stretch is must and should be correlated to CH, alkanes. Now, let us look after this one. Dodecane, C12H26. A peak at 3000 to 2000 centimeter inverse is responsible for CH. Now, look at this peak. Look at this one. What is this peak corresponds to? Single bond C, single bond H. That is the peak which is present in the dodecane. That is, what are the different bonds which are possible in this one? Look at the molecule and first of all write down what are the different possible bonds are present in that molecule. That's it. Your half of the work is done. Excuse me. Your half of the work is done. How? By looking after a molecule, now you need to write down how many different bonds are possible. CC bond is possible, CH bond is possible. If any double bond C is there, double bond CH bond is possible, like this. And now think again, what are the frequencies, what are the wave numbers of that particular bond? In alkanes, you will be having CH and CC. That's it. CC will not give any peaks. Why? Because CC will not show any sort of dipole change. As a result, you will not get any peak at all. But whereas CH, due to the differences between the electronegativities and the mass of the CH, atomic weights of the carbon and hydrogen, you will see a stretch at somewhere around 3000 to 2800. Remember that particular word, that is 3000 to 2800, that is most important. This is also same cyclopentane, where you will see a CC stretching at CH stretching at somewhere around 2800 and 900 somewhere in. (3095 to 3010 centimeter inverse, stretching 3095 to 3010, and whereas C double bond C will show its stretching at 1660 to 1600 centimeter inverse. These two are prominent peaks in alkenes. These two has to be remembered. This is a bending of same bond. This bond may get either stretch or it may also bend. Few molecules may stretch, few molecules may bend also. In a same sample, few molecules may undergo bending, few molecules may undergo stretching also. So another CC stretch will show some peak at 1660 centimeter inverse. Now look at this one, somewhere around 2800 or somewhere 3000 or 3100. You will see a peak here, which corresponds to C double bond CH, and 1600 centimeter inverse, you will see a peak corresponds to somewhere this one. This peak corresponds to C double bond C. And another peak, which is stretching, I mean bending of a double bond CH. This is a bending of double bond CH. This is a stretching of double bond CH, and this is C double bond C stretch. Like this, you have to first of all write down the number of bonds which are present, which you can see in a molecule. After that, you need to assign the functional group values. After that, you need to assign the wave numbers. That's it. That's a very simple phenomenon of interpreting IR spectrum. Okay, this is another alkene. Alkyne. Coming to the alkynes. What are the different bonds which are possible in alkyne? Look at this structure. This is called as one hexyne. Hexyne, 6 carbon atoms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbon atoms. How many number of bonds, types of bonds you can able to see? How many different types of bonds you can able to see? C triple bond C. Yeah. C triple bond C, triple bond C and H, triple bond C and H, and single bond C and CH, single bond CH. Yeah. So these are all the different bonds which you can able to see. Triple bond C, C triple bond C, triple bond CH. Bending and stretching. Bending will take place more than 3300, and the CC stretching will take place between 2150, and bending of the same CH will take place at 900 to 700 centimeter inverse. You can see all the prominent peaks over there. So somewhere around 3300, you will see the prominent, very big peak at 3300 centimeter inverse, which is a triple bond CH, and the CC at 2150. 2150, you will see a CC bond, and a stretching of triple bond CH at somewhere around 600 centimeter inverse, and the bending area that is in the fingerprint region. So like this, you need to analyze each and every spectrum. Look at the compound and assign the peaks. Or else, look at the spectrum and assign what will be the peak at that particular value, at that particular number, what will be the functional group which can be assigned. In that way, you need to analyze. This is another alkyne where C triple bond C, CH will be seen. C triple bond C has been shifted towards the lower wave numbers, and there will be a bending vibration of C triple bond CH. Alcohols, the most important one is alcohols and aldehydes. Nowadays, IR spectroscopy is exclusively meant for the determination of alcohols and aldehydes. I mean ketones, carbonyl compounds. Alcohols group frequency. The free OH might be present if it is an at a one particular end of a molecule. A free OH will be present, which will gives its spectra at 3650 to 3600, and OH might have undergone a hydrogen bonding. I said that alcohols and amines undergo hydrogen bonding. So OH may undergo hydrogen bonding, and that peak will shift towards the lower wavelength. I said that hydrogen bonding lowers the wave numbers. If you can remember the factors influencing the frequency, hydrogen bonding will lower the wave numbers. As a result, the hydrogen shifts towards the 3400 to 3300 centimeter inverse. And COH will also be present. Look at this molecule. If this is a substance, 1-octanol, COH, C single bond C will not get any peaks, and single bond CH, here will be C and there will be a H here. So CH bond will also CH bond and OH bond, CO bond. So these are the prominent peaks. CO, OH, if it is a free or bond with the intermolecular and intramolecular hydrogen bonding. So their peaks. Look at this one at 3600 centimeter, 35 or 3400 centimeter inverse. This is a broad peak. This is a broad peak. What does that broad peak indicates? Intermolecular hydrogen bonding. Intramolecular bonding will give sharp peaks, whereas intermolecular will give broad peak. This broad peak may also disappear upon dilution. Okay, remember that one, most important one. And these are some bending vibrations of C single bond H. And this is a peak correspond to C single bond H stretching, and this is a bending. Okay. Ether, CO. Ether is having only one, CH and CO. That's nothing more than that, right? So there will be a CH bond will be present and CO bond will be present. So CH bond, as you are earlier know, that somewhere around 3000. See, the value is not hard and fast rule that it must and should come at particular value. The value may differ from plus or minus 100 values also, depending upon various characteristics, various influential factors, what we have earlier seen, Fermi resonance and the overtones and hydrogen bonding. Number of factors will come into the picture. So remember, somewhere around 3000, this is the characteristic peak corresponding to CH, and these are the CO stretching somewhere around 1300 to 1000 centimeter inverse. This is the CO, this bond, CO bond. CH bond is this one, CO bond is this one. Like that, you need to understand what are the different types of bonds present in a compound and then assign those peaks to this particular spectrum. Amines. Amines will having NH frequency regions somewhere 50 to 3600 and NH stretching from 3400. Bending will be there at 800 and 1350 centimeter inverse, etc. Yeah, these are the most important one. Carbonyl compounds. So you need to remember each and every value of carbonyl compound. At most important, make it granted that, take it granted that definitely you are going to get a question from this particular region. Without a carbonyl question in your GPAT from IR spectroscopy, there is no paper at all. Either they may give that frequency region and you will be asked to assign for a carbonyl group, or they may ask carbonyl functional group in any of these functional groups, and then you will be asked to identify what is the frequency number. So please be very, very careful in this particular region. You will get a question from this region. So CO will be present in number of functional groups like amides, carboxylic acids, ketones, aldehydes, esters, acid hydrides, acid chlorides. Okay, number of functional groups will be having CO. So, so all these functional groups will be having the regions like in this manner. Amide will show its value at 1690, carboxylic acid 1710, 1715 for ketone, 1725 for all. Again, remember, this value is not a confined value. There will be a shift of the peaks will take place depending upon the compound, depending upon the nature of the substance. Again, the peaks will alter. Either they may go to higher values or towards the lower values too. Coming to the ketones. So these are the carbonyl CO functional groups, and this is the CO functional group. And here it is a ketone. Ketone exclusively gives its peak at 1715 centimeter inverse, and it is conjugation a bit reduces. So if it is in conjugation, obviously the energy will get reduced and the frequency value shifts towards the lower numbers. Aldehydes, CO functional group at somewhere around 1700. Aldehydes, you will be having CH additional group. How to differentiate an aldehyde from ketone? Ketone will have only CO, whereas aldehyde will have CH somewhere around 2820. Ketone will not have 2800 peak. Look at this one, 2800 will not be there. But at aldehydes, you will see a peak corresponds to this CH at 28 to 2700 centimeter inverse. That is the difference between aldehydes and ketones. So these are the values of carboxylic acid, C double bond, COOH, COOH. You will see a carboxylic acid like CO peak, C single bond O, and again OH, and one particular peak of corresponds to CH peak will also be present. These are the values of the carbonyl compounds. So 1710 for C double bond O, C single bond O somewhere around 1300, 1200, OH peak as usual somewhere around more than 3400 centimeter inverse. A peak at exactly more than 3400, blindly say that is alcoholic peak. Maybe the alcoholic functional group in carboxylic acid or free alcohol, whatever it is. So the peak more than 3400, just take it granted that is alcohol. A sharp peak at somewhere around 1700 to 1600 resembles the carbonyl compound, maybe CO in carboxylic acids or ethers, aldehydes, ketones, etc. Okay, these are gunshot points. Esters, again, esters is having somewhere the CO peaks at 1700 centimeter inverse and C single bond O peak. Or you might have seen the ethers also. In the same ethers, you will see the 1300 and 1300 to 1000. There is a peak at ethers also. The same peak will be present even in this case in esters. So like this, you have to resemble, you have to assign each and every peak in a spectra to the particular respective bond. So finally, applications of infrared spectrophotometer spectroscopy, pharmaceutical research for the determination of functional groups. We use IR. For forensic investigation to determine the different samples, like whatever the samples of forensic analysis. Polymers will be determined, polymer structure will be established, lubrication formulation, lubricants, food research, quality assurance and quality control, again for our pharmaceutical purpose. Environmental research is also, IR is also helpful for the determination of what are the different metals, heavy metals present in the environment. Biochemical and biomedical research, coating and surfactants like this. There are very few applications of infrared spectroscopy. So there are very few references. I must thank Google for helping me out to getting these all the animations and pictures. So that's about the IR spectroscopy, and we have concentrated majorly on GPAT point of view, not your regular classes. So if you have any queries, I would be very happy to answer them. Yes, please. The session is open. You can ask any question regarding IR spectroscopy.
Okay, if you have no questions, we can conclude the guest lecture. Thank you, Dr. Ishak, for your nice lecture and very informative lecture you have given. Thank you for your contribution to our institute also. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I feel much
Hope
pride, madam.
looking forward also for your next series of the classes.
Sure,
Yes.
madam. Thank you. I'm honored by your call.
So,
thank you so much.
Thank
madam.
you. Okay. I think, Ishak, you can continue the other classes also on other aspects like HPLC or some other NMR interpretation like that. In the next week, we can plan for 2 more classes. Ishak?
Sure. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ishak.
Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you all, my dear students. I am very happy to inform you every week at least one class we will conduct for the special GPAT orientation. So I request all of you to attend this GPAT classes. So it is taken an initiation by our institute to conduct it free of cost during this pandemic situation. So we may conduct more classes during these 3 months also. So we may invite different speakers from different institutions. So Dr. Ishak will come again for the next series of the classes. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Pawan sir.